When you're living in a tiny house on wheels, winter can be extra challenging, especially during a snowstorm. We have to work harder to keep the tiny house warm and to keep the pipes from freezing because everything is a little bit more exposed. After Redford and I took a walk around the lake and he got to play in the snow and get some energy out, we went back into the tiny house and I started the wood stove. When it is this cold and windy out, our old heater would have struggled to keep the house warm. But once we get the wood stove going, it makes the inside of the tiny house so warm and cozy, and it helps to dry things out, which is important. Always trying to manage that moisture and manage that condensation. Let's see how long it takes me to get it up to temp. While the wood stove was getting up to temperature, I took all of our wet clothes from taking a walk that morning and hung them up on our drying rack, which is directly across from the wood stove, and this does a great job of drying things off pretty quickly. It's not necessarily the best way to decrease the overall moisture in the tiny house, but it is the best way to dry things off if it's wet or snowy outside. I hung up Redford's jacket because when it's this cold and windy, he does not want to go outside without it. It's still coming down out there pretty good. I've got the fire going pretty well. And then I hung up our soaking wet clothes. We weren't even out that long, but the snow just stuck to everything. I think there's still snow in my hair. So hopefully getting the fire on, warming it up in here, will start to dry everything out. Yeah, fire looks like it's doing really well. Pat changed the cap, and it's actually been quite a bit easier to get the fire started because the air is just drawing a lot better, so that's been really nice. Once the fire gets up to temperature, I think I'm going to do a little bit of cooking. Fire is doing well. It just passed the line into the good zone, and we're at 14 minutes. Not bad. That new cap really helps. It's so much more efficient. So I'll give it a little while for the oven to get up to temp. Actually, it's doing pretty well. I'm gonna start getting the potatoes ready. What? Oh, you want to go out? Okay, but we tried this 2 times before, and you were very unhappy with the conditions. Yes, I know. Okay, should we try it again? Do you want to go out? Alright, we'll give it a try. Okay, come on. Ooh. Come here. Oh, you don't like it? Oh, Red, come here. Come on. Do you have to go out? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, go out. Go ahead. Red, go ahead. Good boy. Okay, good boy. Alright, he's out. Oh. Oh, no. No, you don't like it? You coming back in? Okay. Oh, you silly. Alright, maybe we'll put your jacket on, but it's still wet. I left his jacket by the wood stove for a little while to dry it out, and then once I was able to put his jacket on, he was a little more cooperative to go outside. Red loves when we go outside to get extra firewood. He walks around the back of the house with us, and most of the time he just tries to steal a couple pieces of firewood to play with. At this point, the snow was still falling pretty steadily, and there was already well over 6 inches. It was hard to tell because The wind was blowing the snow around so much, it was hard to tell exactly how much accumulation there was, but definitely at least half a foot at this point. Once we had enough wood in the basket to keep the fire going for the next few hours, we headed back into the tiny house, and I was trying to get the fire up to temperature so that the oven would be ready, because one of my favorite things is when we're using the wood stove to heat the house, you can put some food in the roaster at the top and you're heating your house and you're cooking your dinner at the same time, which I always think is so neat. Once the potatoes were prepped and in the oven on the wood stove, I put my gear back on and headed out into the windy, blizzard-like conditions with Redford. I wanted to start shoveling because there was quite a bit of accumulation, and Patrick left for work early that morning before there was hardly any snow on the ground. But now he was going to be back from work in a couple hours, and the driveway was covered in this very wet, heavy snow. So I started working slowly to clear a path. Come here! Come here, come here! It's amazing what a difference that jacket makes. With a little bit of insulation, Redford was running around having the time of his life. Oh, hi! Oh, hi, come here. Oh. It's very heavy snow. The snow started to taper off just in time to catch this beautiful sunset behind the trees. After the potatoes were done roasting, I decided to try making some banana bread on the wood stove. Pat was held late at work because of the snowstorm, so I figured I would make use of these overly ripe bananas and make some baked goods, which is always fun during a snowstorm. Baking with the wood stove is quite a bit more challenging because you have to be more precise with the temperature, but as long as you keep an eye on it, it is definitely doable. The potatoes have been in there for about 15 or 20 minutes just to warm back up, so they're ready to go. And now I'm going to put the banana bread in. So this is a little bit trickier. I'm going to open the vents slightly. There we go. And we'll see if I can regulate the temperature, because when you're baking, it's a little bit more specific than if you're just roasting potatoes. Okay. There's dinner. Made the potatoes on the wood stove. The soup I didn't make on the wood stove. I just heated that up. I made that yesterday. And then the banana bread is in there. The hardest thing about cooking on the wood stove is really regulating the temperature. So we're pretty close to 350 right now. That's where the banana bread is supposed to cook at 350 for like about 40 minutes or so. But it's definitely harder to regulate the temperature on here. I have to constantly check it and see what the fire is doing, and I can damp down the fire, but that's not an immediate fix. And the other thing that I can do is open and close these things. And if it really starts to get hot, what I'll do is just take the lid off and kind of, ooh, it's actually looking really good. All right, good banana bread. But I'll just take the lid off to cool it down and keep it off for a minute or so before I put it back on. So, yeah, banana bread's going pretty well. So the key is just to try not to let the fire get too crazy, because then it's pretty easy to burn it, but I think it's working well so far. I will usually put food right in front of the wood stove, so if you're wondering why this is here, Pat is running late. I know, Red. Pat is running late getting home from work, so what I'll do is I'll put the food right in front of the wood stove and it keeps it warm. And there is the finished banana bread. It's a little burnt around the edges because the fire was getting too hot toward the end. See, it's a little high right now, but I think it'll be fine. It cooked all the way through. This is why cooking on the wood stove is definitely trickier. You have to keep an eye on it. You're not just setting a thermostat and then walking away. You have to keep adjusting the fire, and it takes a little while to respond. So easy to burn things, but we'll see how it tastes. Eventually Patrick got home from a very long day and we were able to enjoy our meal together. And then Redford was very ready to snuggle on the couch and watch some of his favorite YouTubers.
He's already ready.
With no rain the last few days, the leaves were nice and crispy.
As you can see, Redford really enjoys the extra space from the floor couch. When we woke up the next morning, everything was blanketed in snow and the sun was out, so everything was glittering and sparkling in the sunlight. The tiny house did great during this winter storm. We were able to keep the inside toasty warm. We were able to keep our water going. We didn't end up with any frozen pipes despite the fact that the temperatures were freezing and we had blizzard-like conditions and quite a bit of snow. So that just goes to show you, over the past 6 years of living in the tiny house, we've learned so much about how to manage this unusual living situation. And I have to say that if it wasn't for the wood stove, it probably wouldn't have been quite as much fun. It's really, really happy to have that wood stove in our tiny house. Thank you so much for enjoying this winter storm with us. We are looking forward to spring and sharing our upcoming travels with you. So make sure you are subscribed so that you can come along with us.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.